I just wanted to celebrate my birthday. Instead of music, I heard, "This is not for people like you." I cried in the car. A week later, I won in court. My name is Mary. I'm 28 years old. I live in a small apartment on the third floor of a building with an elevator that breaks down every other week, and I've been in a wheelchair for the past 4 years. I don't like to say I lost the use of my legs. I like to say I found something else in their place. It wasn't immediate, of course. At first, there was only the wreckage, twisted steel, blurred sirens, and a voice in my head whispering, "You won't dance again. Ever." But I did. I dance every week now. Ballroom, mostly. My partner Michael says I lead better than anyone he's trained with, and I believe him. We move like we're writing poetry with our bodies. I also write code, JavaScript, mostly, and blog on the side. My blog's called Wheels in Motion. It's about life, accessibility, visibility, love, fear, anger, all the parts of being human when people only see the chair. Last Friday was my birthday. I decided for once not to be reasonable. Not to host a cozy dinner or a movie night in my place where everything is safe and I don't have to explain myself to strangers. No. I wanted music loud enough to drown my doubts, laughter big enough to silence old ghosts. I wanted neon lights and sticky drinks and dancing, not for a cause, not for therapy, but because it was my damn birthday and I deserved joy. So I told my friends, let's go to Nova. It's a trendy nightclub downtown, 2 stories, open layout, decent reviews, and supposedly inclusive. I'd called ahead earlier in the week. They told me there were ramps, that the bathrooms were accessible. I even had Sarah, my best friend, check it out in person on Wednesday. It's tight, she said, but manageable. I dressed in my favorite burgundy top and leather jacket. Wore the gold hoop earrings that make me feel bolder than I am. Sarah curled my hair while we drank champagne in my kitchen. "Tonight is for you," she said, kissing my cheek. No disclaimers. We got there just after 10. The sidewalk outside was buzzing, people in heels and sneakers, glitter and cologne. I could hear the bass thumping through the walls, my heart sinking to it. This was it. My night. Then we got to the door. The bouncer, he was tall, bald, with a jaw like a steel trap, looked at me, then at Sarah, then back at me. "You can't come in," he said flatly. I blinked. "I have a reservation," I said, showing him my phone. "We're on the list." He didn't look. "It's a private establishment. We reserve the right to deny entry. It's for your own safety." "For my safety?" "There's stairs inside. No lift. It's not designed for people like you." I felt it, like a slap, the phrase. People like you. I called ahead. They said it was accessible. "I don't know who you talked to," he said. "But management has final say." By now, other people in line were watching. Some looked away, awkward. Others stared. Sarah stepped forward. "You're kidding, right? You're denying her because she's in a wheelchair. We're not set up for it. It's a liability." I took out my phone. "Can you say that again?" The bouncer scoffed and crossed his arms. "You're not coming in." End of story. I filmed the whole exchange. My hands were shaking, but my voice was steady. Sarah whispered, "Let's go," but I couldn't move. Not yet. I had to hold the camera just long enough for the world to see. And when we left, my heart didn't just break, it boiled. I posted the video that night. I didn't even wait. I added a caption that said, "Tonight I was denied entry to a nightclub on my birthday. Not because I was drunk, disorderly, or late, but because I'm in a wheelchair. This is what ableism looks like." Then I turned off my phone and cried in Sarah's passenger seat, mascara smudging down my cheek, my arms crossed tight around my chest like I could hold myself together. I didn't know then what was coming. The support. The hate. The lawsuit. The stage. The flood. All I knew was that something had changed in me forever. And I wasn't going to sit still for it. Not anymore. The morning after my birthday, I woke up feeling hollow, like someone had scooped out my insides during the night and left behind a cold draft where my spirit used to be. For a few blissful seconds I forgot. The sun through my blinds was soft. My room smelled like jasmine from the candle I forgot to blow out. I stretched instinctively, the kind of stretch you do before reality catches up to your body. Then I turned, reached for my phone, and felt it. That gut punch of memory. "You're not coming in." End of story. My hand hovered over the screen. I didn't want to look. I didn't want to feel what I knew was waiting. But I had to. I couldn't pretend it didn't happen. When the screen lit up, my heart dropped. 67,812 notifications. Instagram. Twitter. TikTok. Facebook. DMs from people I didn't know. Tags from influencers I'd never heard of. News outlets. Advocacy pages. Even local politicians. The video had been viewed nearly 1.2 million times overnight. I stared at it, not breathing. "Mary, wake up," I whispered to myself. "This is really happening." The comments were flooding in. "This is disgusting. Sue the hell out of them. Queen. Absolute queen. This is why we need better accessibility laws." But not all of them were support. Not everything is discrimination. Karen on wheels. You just want attention. Everyone wants to be a victim now. Clubs aren't rehab centers. Move on. I sat back in bed, my chest aching. The good comments were there. Thousands of them. But the hate? The hate screamed. It wormed into my brain like a virus, feeding on every ounce of vulnerability I thought I'd already hardened over. I was used to being stared at. I was used to having to explain my existence to strangers in elevators, in job interviews, on dates. But this wasn't just the look of a stranger. This was 1,000 people weaponizing their ignorance all at once. Picking me apart. Dismissing me. Mocking me. I closed my eyes and let the phone fall to my lap. Do I delete it? Do I shut it all down? Would that make me a coward? But then I remembered the girl from Utah who'd messaged me last year after reading a blog post I'd written called, "The Chair Isn't Who I Am." She was 16 and newly paralyzed. She told me I was the first disabled woman she saw dancing. She said it made her believe she'd dance again someday too. I picked up my phone. Took a deep breath. I went live. Hair unbrushed. Face bare. Still wearing the black shirt I'd cried into the night before. "I wasn't going to speak today," I began, voice trembling. "But I think I have to. Not just for me, but for every single one of us who's ever been made to feel like we don't belong." Thousands joined within seconds. I didn't try to sound polished. I didn't try to sound brave. I just spoke. I told them what happened. I explained what it feels like when you roll into a space and feel eyes on you like you're not meant to exist outside a hospital or your own living room. I talked about dignity. Rage. The way society uses the word inspirational like a muzzle. This isn't about a club, I said. It's about the message they sent. That our joy doesn't matter. That our bodies make people uncomfortable. That we should stay home so they can pretend we don't exist. By the time I ended the stream, my inbox was overflowing. Lawyers offering help pro bono. Activists reaching out. A journalist from a major magazine asking for an interview. It was surreal. Like watching someone else's life unfold in front of me. But I also got another message. From the club's manager. "We regret any misunderstanding. Our security staff acted with caution due to safety limitations in the building. We apologize for any offense taken." Any offense taken. Like it was my fault I felt hurt. Like they hadn't slammed a door in my face and called it protection. That was the moment I decided. I wasn't going to let them write the ending to this. I called my friend Tom, who works in civil rights law. "I want to file," I told him. "A formal complaint. I want compensation. But more than that, I want a policy change." He didn't even hesitate. "I'll get the papers started," he said. "You ready for the fight?" I didn't say yes right away. Because I wasn't. Not completely. I was scared. I knew this meant scrutiny. Meaner comments. Harassment. People digging through every word I'd ever posted online to find a reason to discredit me. But I also knew something else. If I didn't stand up now, I'd never forgive myself. "I'm ready," I said, my voice stronger than I felt. "Let's do it." And then, as if the universe wanted to throw me a bone, another message popped up minutes later. "Hi, Mary. I'm part of the organizing committee for Unseen Grace, a fashion show featuring disabled creators and models. We saw your story. We'd be honored if you consider joining us." I stared at the message for a long time. Not just because of the offer, but because of the name. Unseen Grace. For the first time since that night, I smiled. There was something poetic about it. Because grace is never about perfection. It's about rising after you've been told you can't. And I was just getting started. I never wanted to be a symbol. I just wanted a birthday night out with my friends. A little music, maybe a mojito, and the feel of the bass pulsing through my skin. But after Nova turned me away and the video went viral, it felt like I had been handed a torch I didn't ask to carry. The kind that lights everything up, including you. In the days that followed, I couldn't step outside without someone recognizing me. At the grocery store, a cashier whispered, "You're that girl from the video, right?" A man at the coffee shop said, "Hey, I saw you on Channel 7. Good for you." I nodded, smiled, said thank you. But inside, I was vibrating with something between panic and power. I had already filed the lawsuit with Tom's help. We submitted it under the state's anti-discrimination statutes. We were asking for $2,000 in damages. But more than that, we were demanding Nova revise their accessibility policies, conduct training, and implement permanent physical changes to their building. I didn't want their money. I wanted their awareness. The club responded with cold professionalism. Their lawyer issued a bland press release. While we regret the guest's experience, we stand by our staff's judgment regarding building limitations and guest safety. Guest. Like I'd been inside. Tom said this was classic damage control. He told me not to engage with them directly, not even to correct their language online. Let the legal process speak for you, he said. You've already said enough. You don't need to justify your humanity. But still, the silence from Nova felt louder than any insult. It was like being erased twice, first at the door, then by their refusal to name the harm. In the midst of all this, the invitation to Unseen Grace sat glowing in my inbox. I wasn't sure at first. I'm not a model. I dance, I know my body, yes, but I'd never thought of myself as beautiful in the way fashion demands. I still have moments staring at my legs in the mirror, wondering if the world will ever stop seeing me as broken. But I said yes. They flew me out to New York the following weekend. Sarah came too. I wheeled through JFK Airport with my usual blend of anxiety and adrenaline, wondering what the hell I'd signed up for. The venue was a converted art museum in Brooklyn. White walls, vaulted ceilings, skylights pouring sun like melted gold. The first time I saw the runway, I laughed. Are you sure this is for me? One of the organizers, a woman named Mira, paralyzed from the chest down after a spinal surgery gone wrong, touched my shoulder. It's for all of us, she said. And for everyone who's ever been hidden. We spent 2 days in fittings. Designers draped fabric across my frame with gentle hands and fierce eyes. Your body tells a story, one whispered as he pinned a sapphire gown at my waist. Let's make them listen. The show was scheduled for Friday night. The same night Nova's legal team sent their official rebuttal. I read it backstage under the yellow lights of the dressing room. The plaintiff's claims are exaggerated and emotionally charged. There is no evidence of deliberate exclusion or intent to discriminate. Our venue prioritizes guest safety within structural limits. No further action is warranted. I sat there, phone in hand, staring at the words like they were a personal slap. Exaggerated. Emotionally charged. No evidence. I almost crumpled right then. Almost. But Mira saw me from across the room. She wheeled over without asking and placed something in my lap. A mirror. Look, she said. I did. My face was done up in gold and rose tones, lashes curled like wings, lips bold. My gown shimmered like midnight in sapphires. But it wasn't the makeup that caught me. It was my eyes. I looked alive. Fierce. And underneath the fear I saw something else. Conviction. I'm not doing this for them, I said softly. I'm doing it because I can. Mira smiled. That's the whole point. When the music started, the audience was already packed. Journalists, influencers, students, parents, artists, hundreds of faces watching, waiting. My turn came third. They called my name and I rolled out, the lights hot on my skin, the music swelling in my chest. And then, for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel like a victim. I felt like fire. I didn't move fast. I didn't need to. Every turn of my wheels was intentional, measured, like punctuation in a poem. I locked eyes with people. I owned the silence. I was the silence. And then someone started clapping and it grew, and I swear I felt the whole world tilt for a second. When I reached the end of the runway, I turned my chair deliberately and stared down the line of cameras. Not to say look at me, but to say see me. After the show, reporters swarmed. I did 3 interviews that night. One asked if I planned to continue activism through fashion. I said, I plan to continue existing. If that's activism, then yes. But back in the hotel, when the makeup was wiped off and the lights dimmed, I still read the hate. People were still commenting. Still attacking. Still accusing. Just another disabled chick playing martyr. Maybe if you spent less time whining and more time working. She thinks she's Rosa Parks because of a damn club. And the worst part? Some small, aching part of me believed them. But Sarah sat next to me on the bed, silent, reading over my shoulder. And then she said something I'll never forget. They want you to feel small. Because your truth is so damn big, it scares them. I didn't respond. I just let her words settle inside me like medicine. The trial date had been set. I knew we were just getting started. And I also knew this wasn't just my fight anymore. The courthouse smelled like lemon polish and nerves. I sat in my charcoal blazer and navy slacks, hands in my lap, palms slick with sweat I kept wiping on my thighs. Tom was beside me, calm as ever, whispering about the strategy ahead. But his words blurred at the edges. I wasn't here in a courtroom. I was in every doorway that had ever narrowed as I approached, in every elevator that skipped my floor, in every sideways glance when I dared show up somewhere unexpected. Nova's lawyer, Mr. Halloran, was lean, tan, well-groomed in that way people are when they've never been told no. He didn't look at me once during the preliminary statements. Not even when the judge asked if Ms. Mary Delgado was present in the room. I raised my hand. "I'm here," I said, my voice even though my heart felt like it had strapped itself to a jackhammer. They tried to make it seem simple. Halloran stood, pacing slowly as he addressed the room. "This case," he began, "is a regrettable misunderstanding. My client, Nova Nightlife, did not deny entry out of malice or prejudice, but out of genuine safety concerns. The building's interior includes stairs, tight passageways, high traffic. They are not equipped to ensure safe access for someone using a wheelchair. Someone. Not Ms. Delgado. Not Mary. Someone." He went on, "My client is a private entity. They maintain the right to refuse service based on safety. Not identity. Not disability." I glanced toward the gallery. There were people watching, some from disability rights groups, some just curious faces who'd followed the story online. I spotted Mira from the fashion show in the second row. Her presence steadied me. Tom stood next. "Your Honor," he said, with a calm steel that made me sit up straighter, "my client was turned away from a public-facing business not because of fire hazards, not because of intoxication or dress code violations, but because of her presence. Because her wheelchair posed, in their words, a liability. And it wasn't a private moment, it happened in full public view, filmed, with words as clear as daylight. People like you." This was not caution. This was discrimination. He let the words hang like smoke in the air. The judge, a gray-haired woman named Torres, peered at me with a look I couldn't read. Her voice was neutral when she asked, "Ms. Delgado, would you like to speak?" I nodded. I wheeled myself forward slowly. The courtroom was quiet, painfully so. My voice felt buried deep in my stomach. But I found it. "My name is Mary Delgado," I said. "I'm 28. I have a job in software development. I'm a dancer. I have friends. I live independently. And on my birthday I was denied the chance to celebrate with them, not because of any wrongdoing, but because someone decided my body was a problem." I paused, forcing my eyes to meet Halloran's. I didn't ask for special treatment. I didn't demand to be carried upstairs or given VIP access. I did everything right. I called ahead. I checked. And when I got there they looked at me and decided I didn't belong. And that moment? That moment was not unique. It was just the first one I recorded. The judge's eyes didn't waver. "Thank you, Ms. Delgado." When I returned to my seat, Tom gave me a subtle nod. I breathed out through my nose, slow and steady. Over the next few days, the case moved quickly. Witnesses were called. Sarah testified, calm and cutting. Nova's staff claimed confusion, policy gaps, lack of training. They said they never intended harm. But harm doesn't need intention to be real. After closing statements, the judge called for a recess before her decision. I wheeled out into the courtyard, blinking in the harsh sunlight. People came up to me. Some shook my hand. Others just smiled. One young man, mid-20s, in a faded hoodie approached me shyly. "I saw your video," he said. I haven't been out in public much since my injury. But this, what you're doing, it means something." I swallowed the lump in my throat. "Thank you," I managed. That night, I couldn't sleep. I scrolled through my blog comments. Hundreds of them. Some still cruel, but others quietly powerful. "Because of you, I asked my favorite cafe to build a ramp. I used to hide my crutches. Now I post videos of my dance practice. My daughter's in a chair. She thinks you're magic." I cried silently into my pillow, letting the grief and the gratitude mix in me like stormwater. I didn't know what the judge would decide. But something had already shifted. The world was watching. The next morning the ruling came. Judge Torres delivered it clearly, without flair, but her words cut like music. The court finds that Nova Nightlife did engage in discriminatory behavior by denying access to Ms. Delgado based on her disability. The establishment is ordered to pay the requested $2,000 in damages and, more critically, to implement an accessibility compliance plan within the next 90 days, including structural changes and staff training. I gasped. My hands flew to my mouth. Sarah squeezed my arm so hard I thought she might leave a bruise. We won. But more than the money, more than the apology that would inevitably come in some polished statement, I felt seen. Officially. Legally. Unforgettably. Nova's lawyer looked like he'd swallowed a lemon. I didn't care. The moment we stepped out of the courthouse, cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions. I didn't answer any of them. Instead, I held up my phone, opened Instagram and posted. We won. Not just for me. For every person who's been told to stay out of sight. We're not going anywhere. And we're not done. That post reached 3 million people in 2 days. I received a grant from a civic inclusion group the following week. And that's when the idea for the foundation was born, because I realized the fight wasn't over. It was just changing shape. There's a strange kind of silence that follows victory. Not relief. Not rest. Just space. The kind you never had before. The kind that demands to be filled. The day after the court ruling, I woke up to sunlight slanting across my bed, my inbox flooding with messages from strangers, and a question looping through my head like static. What now, Mary? I'd climbed one mountain, but there were so many more. And not everyone had a platform like I did. Not everyone had Tom. Or Sarah. Or a blog that could make people listen. So I started writing again, not just a blog post but a proposal. A blueprint. I called it Forward Motion Foundation. The idea came fast and sharp, like it had been waiting in my bones this whole time. A nonprofit focused on supporting people with musculoskeletal disabilities, starting small, grants for mobility aids, mentorship for young disabled professionals, and an open resource network for accessibility audits in public spaces. I pitched the idea in a blog post titled After the Fight. Now we build. Within 48 hours, a friend who worked in local government offered an empty office space downtown. A college student majoring in nonprofit administration reached out, asking to intern. Someone else volunteered to build a website. It was happening. For real. Still, not everything was momentum. The backlash didn't vanish after the lawsuit. If anything, it evolved. It got nastier in corners where people felt safe behind anonymous usernames. She's monetizing her disability now. What next? A TED Talk? A book deal? I bet she could walk if she really wanted to. That one stopped me cold. I stared at it for a long time, rereading it like I might unlock some hidden logic in its cruelty. But it wasn't logic. It was projection. People who couldn't stomach the idea that I could be both limited and whole. Sarah found me crying in the foundation's empty office one evening. Lights off, slumped over the keyboard. They think I'm using this to get famous, I whispered. She dropped to her knees beside me. Do you want to be famous, Mary? I shook my head. Then don't worry about the ones shouting into their own bitterness, she said. You don't owe the world your silence just to make them comfortable. I exhaled. She was right. God, she was always right. So I kept going. We got our 501(c)(3) status within 6 weeks. I hired a small team, other disabled professionals, people who got it. People who knew what it meant to have to map out bathroom access every time they left the house. People who understood how exhausting it is to ask for the bare minimum and be told you're difficult. Our launch party was held in a community theater space with ramps and automatic doors. We didn't have a ton of money for decorations, so we lined the walls with photos of people from the disability community, submitted by followers of my blog. Their captions were printed underneath. I built my first hand cycle at 19. My daughter and I go rollerblading together now. She holds my chair. After my spinal surgery, I learned to surf again. The ocean doesn't care what shape you're in. I stood up to speak at the event. My voice shook. Not from nerves but from the weight of it all. The story that had started as a night of exclusion was now a room full of light. We're not here to prove anything, I told them. We're here because we exist. Because we matter. Because no one should have to fight this hard to be seen. The applause was quiet at first, then built like a wave. I felt it rise around me warm and alive. People hugged me. Few cried. One man in his 70s gripped my hand and said, "I never thought I'd see this in my lifetime." Afterward, I went outside alone, wheeled to the edge of the sidewalk and looked out over the city. The lights stretched far beyond the skyline. There were so many buildings, so many doors. And for the first time in my life, I believed maybe, just maybe, those doors were beginning to open. But the universe wasn't done with me yet. A few weeks later, I got a message from Michael, my ballroom dance partner. We hadn't danced together in months. Life had been a whirlwind, and I pulled back without meaning to. He'd understood. Saw the foundation. "You're incredible. But I miss dancing with you. Come back." I smiled at the screen, heart tugging at old familiar rhythms. I wrote back, "I don't even know if I remember how." His reply was instant: muscle memory. And soul. You've got both. So I went. I rolled into the studio a few days later, nervous and giddy. The wood floors gleamed under the warm lights. Michael greeted me like no time had passed, his eyes soft, arms open. We danced for hours that night, the music threading its way through our bodies like electricity. I remembered every turn, every trust fall, every lift that had once scared me but now felt like flying. And then at the end of practice he said, "There's something else. A charity gala. All about inclusion in the arts." They asked if we'd perform. My breath caught. Me? On stage? He grinned. "You? Us?" I nodded slowly, the idea sinking into my bones like heat. I wasn't just healing anymore. I was becoming. We said yes. The show would be in 6 weeks. We chose a piece that wasn't flashy, no big tricks or theatrics. Just a waltz. Simple. Honest. Elegant. I didn't want to perform to prove anything. I wanted to dance because it was mine. And when I closed my eyes and pictured the audience, I imagined them rising, not out of pity, but out of something deeper. Recognition. Because this wasn't just about what had been taken from me. It was about everything I had reclaimed. 6 weeks later, I found myself backstage again, only this time it wasn't for fashion or protest. It was for the thing that had always lived inside me, even when everything else was taken. Dance. Michael was already in his suit, stretching near the mirror, while I sat in my chair, staring at my hands. They were trembling. Not violently, but just enough to betray the storm moving under my skin. "You okay?" he asked, coming over. "I don't know," I whispered. "I thought I would be. But this feels different." "It is different," he said gently. "This is yours. You're not reacting anymore. You're choosing." That word, choosing, hit me like breath after being underwater. I had spent so much of the last year responding to the world, defending myself, explaining myself, making the case over and over that I had the right to exist, to take up space, to celebrate. But this moment? It wasn't about them. It was about me. About joy. About movement that didn't apologize. The crowd outside was massive, more than 500 people packed into a downtown theater. The gala had drawn artists, activists, politicians. The mayor was even rumored to be there. But I didn't care about any of them. I cared about the girl I used to be. The one who sat in a hospital room 4 years ago, staring at her legs like they were foreign objects, wondering if she'd ever feel beautiful again. The lights dimmed. Our names were announced. "Please welcome to the stage, Mary Delgado and Michael Ross." The music started, something slow, haunting, wrapped in piano chords and distant strings. Michael took my hand and wheeled me into the light. It hit us like morning. And then we moved. It's hard to describe the way it feels to dance when your body has been rewritten. Every shift of weight becomes a statement. Every spin, a rebellion. I led with my breath, with the rhythm humming inside me. Michael's hands knew where I would be before I did. It was trust. It was memory. It was a language we hadn't forgotten. There was a moment near the end when the music dropped to a whisper. I turned in a slow arc facing the crowd. The lights softened. The stage felt infinite. And I felt free. Not brave. Not inspirational. Not strong for a disabled person. Just Mary. Alive. Whole. The final note lingered in the air. And then silence. For half a second I thought maybe we'd misread the moment. Maybe no one understood what they were seeing. And then applause. It started softly, then grew, crashing over us like a tide. People rose to their feet. Clapping, cheering, whistling. Not a single pitying glance. Not a single hollow cheer. Just recognition. Michael reached down and squeezed my shoulder. "You did it," he said. "No," I whispered, barely holding back tears. We did. Later, when I posted a clip online, I wrote only one sentence. I didn't dance to prove anything, I danced because I could. It went viral, of course. But this time the comments felt different. Quieter. Wiser. Like people were starting to see. But the real magic came a week later when I opened my inbox to find a message from the owner of a nightclub. Not Nova, a different one. Hi Mary. We've just completed renovations to add a ramp and widen our bathrooms. We were inspired by your story. If you ever feel like dancing again, we'd love to have you. I stared at the screen stunned. Then I laughed. Soft and real. Because that night, years ago, when they told me I didn't belong, I believed it. But now I was changing the rooms themselves. One door at a time. It's funny how the smallest victories can feel the biggest when they come from places you once felt most unwelcome. The message from that nightclub, the one I'd never heard of, that took the time, money, and care to make their space accessible, it stayed with me. Not because I needed to go, but because they didn't just open a door. They changed one. I kept thinking back to that night outside Nova. The way the cold air bit at my skin. The way my voice trembled as I asked, why, and got nothing but stone in return. I'd gone home humiliated, small, and convinced I was too much for the world to accommodate. But now? Now people were building ramps because they saw me. And saw themselves in me. Forward Motion Foundation was growing faster than I could have dreamed. We had dozens of volunteers. A mentorship program. Even a small fund that helped people cover the ridiculous hidden costs of disability, like $400 wheelchair cushions insurance won't pay for, or home modifications no landlord wants to approve. We partnered with architects to offer free accessibility audits. We helped small businesses navigate ADA compliance without the fear of lawsuits. We reframed inclusion not as a burden, but as a benefit, a way of saying you are welcome here. And people listened. But for all the external change, the biggest shift happened inside me. The hate didn't disappear. It never fully will. Some people will always look at me and only see the chair. Some will always believe I'm an opportunist, a professional victim, a woman trying to build a brand on sympathy. Let them. Because the people who matter, the ones who are climbing their own mountains in silence, who have been told no 1,000 different ways, they're watching too. And they're moving forward. Last week, I hosted a community event. Small crowd. Free food. A local band. No cameras, no hashtags. Just space. We held it in the very same club that had reached out, the one that built the ramp. It was a Friday night. The dance floor was packed. People moved like joy itself, canes, chairs, braces, sneakers, heels. No one apologized. No one asked, "Are you supposed to be here?" Because they already knew the answer. Michael was there. Sarah too. Even Mira came, rolling in with her signature bright lipstick and a laugh you could hear across the room. And I danced. Not on a stage this time. No spotlight. No curated moment. Just music. Breath. Connection. As the song faded, I looked up and saw a girl watching me from the edge of the room. Early 20s. Sitting in a chair like mine. Her hands were fidgeting in her lap. Her friend whispered something, nudging her toward the floor. She hesitated. And then I saw it. That flicker. The beginning of yes. I rolled toward her and smiled. "Wanna dance?" She nodded. And just like that, she moved forward. So did I. I don't know what comes next. Not really. But I know this. The doors that were closed to me? I'm not waiting for someone else to open them anymore. I'm building my own. With ramps. With music. With grace. And when someone else comes behind me, someone younger, someone afraid, someone told, "You don't belong here," those doors will already be open. Because I danced through them first.